We're going to talk a little bit about the word woman. It is preeminent in some of your Substack title, What About Woman? Women, excuse me. And then you also have, what do you call it? The word is
The word
woman.
woman. Yeah.
Yeah. And you write about that almost very frequently. So tell us a little bit
Yeah.
more about that idea, where that came from.
Okay, well, it's another quite long story, but obviously I was involved in the world of childbirth, as you know, and then round about sort of in between writing the Positive Birth book and Give Birth Like a Feminist, I started to notice language changes, which I was just curious about. Like people started to talk about birthing people and that kind of stuff. And so I was thinking, oh, that's interesting. Like, why are they suddenly using this language? And it was completely fresh and new to me. And I wanted to know more about it. I like language. I like words. I like writing. I'm curious. I was curious. So I kind of dove into it a bit. And before Give Birth Like a Feminist came out, I had to have a think, do I want to change the language in this book or write something about the language? And then I kind of thought, actually, this is a book about kind of sex-based issues, sex-based oppression. And so I feel that woman is sex-based word. I'm going to use sex-based language. So I was already kind of feeling a little bit that way then, I guess. But then what happened, it is too long a story to go into really, but I did get myself into a lot of hot water. I became one of these cancelled women, I suppose, is one way of putting it. That happened during the pandemic. So November 2020 was when it all came to a peak. So I just really was very polite about it all. And I didn't say anything bigoted or horrible or nasty. But what's I've learned in this debate is that you cannot question it at all. Otherwise, you will be accused of being the most awful person like this. It's really incongruous. It's really hard to make sense of because you can ask a question in the most polite and sensitive way, and you still will get that. So that's what happened to me. And that's one of the reasons why I don't run the positive birth movement anymore. And I'm no longer particularly involved in the world of birth because I've been kicked out of it really for being a non-conforming heretic when it comes to
We're
this
essentially
language.
stating a biological obviousness of that women give birth. That's why you've been kicked out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what happened at the time. I think there was just a whiff of heresy about me at the time. And I think there were people at the time, there's a lot of online bullying goes on, as I'm sure you know. And I think it was just one of those situations where I kind of handed it to them on a plate, really. They saw a chink in my armor and they could see that there was a way they could pull me down. And I think
Who's they?
well, it was a very small group of
Yeah.
doulas, hypnobirthing teachers, and other birth workers. So, and they were all women, and none of them were trans or anything like that. But that's quite typical, unfortunately. I mean, that's another whole topic, I guess, is why do women tear each other down? But I think at the time I was really riding high. I just had my second book come out, and I was running this global organization, and I was on lots of podcasts and things, and sometimes that really upsets people. They don't want that. I don't know why. Why do women do this to other women? But anyway,
I
that's what
mean,
happened.
to other people with uteruses, is that what you mean? I had a paper published in December of 2024 just on twin birthing. And it took us almost a year to get it through publication and peer review. And one of the peer reviewers wanted us to change all the words from women to birthing person.
Mm.
And we refused to do
All
it.
of them. All of them.
No, no, one of the reviewers.
Oh no, but I mean, they want you to change all the words?
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
To take the word woman out, I mean, essentially take the word woman or mother sort of
out.
out of our paper, which of
Yeah.
course, you know, I will absolutely not conform to anything that sort of thing because to me it's not even just principle, it's actually truth. So
Yeah.
it took us longer to do that. Again, it is weird that the small group of people can be so vicious
Mm.
about something that you know by calling a woman, you're not denying somebody isn't or whatever. You are just being truthful. You're being biologically and scientifically truthful.
Sure. And I've always been very careful to say that, if, and I don't work one to one with pregnant women, but if I was a midwife, let's say, and I was working with somebody who didn't want to be referred to as a woman, as
Oh,
I'm sure
sure.
you would, of course I would be respectful to them because the whole everything that I've ever written about, said, or stood for is about respectful care of whoever is in front of you. And so, of course, I don't think that you should insist on calling someone a woman or using she, her pronouns if that's not what that person wants.
See, and I don't think it's
But
about the word woman at all. I think it's about power and control. This is a leftism thing. They always change the language. They use language as a way, misinformation. What does misinformation even mean? Well, it turns out
yeah,
almost all misinformation was actually truthful, so it can't possibly mean what they think it means. And they do this to put people who they disagree with in a position of weakness. They make them seem like they have to cow, that they have to like bend the knee. And those who didn't, it can only take a small group of people to go out on social media and make it look like there's this wave of hatred toward that, especially when it comes to obstetrics and motherhood. I mean, the fact that we can't call it motherhood, that we can't call it breastfeeding,
yeah,
that we have to use the term chest feeding. By the way, even if you're a trans woman, or I guess you'd be a trans, what would you be?
man.
Man,
Well,
okay. And you're going to breastfeed, you're still going to breastfeed. It doesn't matter.
yeah,
It's still, I have breasts, right? So
yeah,
why can't I say breastfeeding? Why was that one even changed? These things are
it is.
crazy.
Yeah, it is very strange. I mean, I think having been involved in, the conversation about it for like 5 years now, I think really it's also about erasing women as a sex class or denying women as a sex class. And in many ways, I think it is a men's rights movement and a real backlash against feminism from the patriarchy. You can see that playing out if you watch a sport event where a male person is being allowed to, and everyone has to, it's like the emperor's new clothes. Everyone has to clap along and say, look at that amazing woman, how fast they can run. It's dystopian. And again, it goes back to what you were saying earlier about why do people go along with these things without questioning? It's extraordinary. And that is the saddest thing about the whole experience for me, I think, is that realization that some people will just go along with the most ridiculous things in order to not have what happened to me, like get taken out into the town square and have rotten tomatoes thrown at them or worse.
Well, we saw it. We saw
So
it. We saw it in full force during COVID when if you were outside on a beach by yourself, not wearing a mask, you would get arrested. Right.
yeah, it's the same principle
It
at
is a
work.
mass formation psychosis absurdity. The
Mhm.
idea that people are that they're that to say something, your daughter has competed all her life to become good at track, and now she's losing by 20 seconds to some person who last year ran in the boys track meet, and
Yeah,
we're supposed to applaud that. So yeah,
yeah,
I don't even consider this controversial. As you said very eloquently, this isn't about the individual person. This is
no.
about how society uses words and uses language, and how
Yeah.
important language is and how we communicate.
And I think when the language changes in particularly, I mean, the world of maternity and breastfeeding were quite quickly ideologically captured by all of this. And the language changes were really far, and it's really interesting how fast they were to be rolled out. When you think about some of the language things I talked about in Give Birth Like a Feminist, like incompetent cervix or whatever, and how women have been saying for decades, please don't say that anymore. And it just doesn't change. And yet, suddenly, in about a year's space of time, everyone was taking the word woman out of all of their social media posts, out of their policy documents. Everywhere you looked, it was disappearing, and being replaced by the most. Well, we could talk about that as well. A whole different collection of, vulva owners and egg producers and cervix havers and, birth givers and uh, chest feeders and all of these things, all of these euphemisms, as if we haven't had enough euphemisms for the female body in the past and erased the female experience already enough through history.
Let me pig pile on that because, the American College of OBGYN, I'm still a member. And, sometimes you hold your enemies close. And I get their emails and stuff like that. They do not use the word woman in any of their
Yeah.
documents anymore. I think the Royal College still does, but I'm not quite up on most of their recent publications. But up until recently, I think they were still using the word, but the American College of OBGYN does not use the word woman. And
Yeah,
they do
exactly.
not use breastfeeding anymore. They've changed their terminology. And this is the leading organization that's supposed to represent doctors who take care of women.
Yeah. That's
Right.
you reminded me now what I was going to say is like, why is this area in particular? Because I used to think I write about birth. Why am I being involved in this discussion about trans stuff? It's got nothing to do with
Yeah.
anything that I've got to do with. But I think what it is that there's been this kind of concerted effort with the language to what happens is if you language out of the birth and the breastfeeding and everything, you're kind of disconnecting the concept of woman from the concept from the words, from biology. So you're then separating woman out from female biology. You even see social media posts that say it's not just women who have periods, things like that.
Yeah.
And it's like it's repeated and repeated and repeated like a mantra, all of this stuff. And so then I think what the purpose of it is, I've come to the conclusion, we're told the purpose of it is to be inclusive of women who don't identify as women if they're giving birth. But I think the purpose of it is for men who want to identify as women. Because if you keep repeating that female biology has got nothing to do with the word woman and with being female, then that just opens the door and makes it more easy for them to say that they are a woman, to claim female identity, because you've disconnected the concept of woman from periods, breastfeeding, birth, all of those things.
How did these few men get that much power? And it seems to me there's a bigger agenda because it can't just be to satisfy these few men who may or may not have a biological issue or be confused. It can't be, they're not a big enough constituency to have that kind of power. I sort of am baffled.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think there are people, and I'm not one of them, who understand the kind of the strings that have been pulled in the background around this better than I do. But I believe, there's obviously a lot of money to be made out of trans healthcare, as it's called. And I think that in America in particular has really
Yes.
taken off, hasn't it? So that is one element. I think those kind of underlying patriarchal energies are another element because, in a patriarchy, men get what they want. That's the point of it. So, and men and women will support them in those goals in a patriarchy because the women do it because they want to be liked by the men and safe. So I think this idea of a man wanting to be a woman being supported in that is all to do with patriarchy and a male entitlement, really.
Yeah, one of the
So
things
I think
about
it's
getting older and not having any masters anymore, I mean, I don't have an employer. I'm licensed, but I don't really care. I can speak freely and
yeah,
logically, and I don't have to worry about necessarily. And again, if I got totally canceled, you know what?
yeah,
I'll just I'll go about doing my thing. And if nobody wants to learn breech or twins from me anymore, because I think that women give birth, well, then they'll. I
yeah,
don't think that constituency is that big. I think they make big noise, but I don't think they're that big. And I just saw something recently, and I don't want to blame the wrong person for it. Might have been Michelle Obama or somebody else who said something about the fact that the biological ability of a woman to give birth isn't something that's the most important thing or something like that. But it's the most unique thing possible. And again, they're trying to diminish this thing that is amazing and unique and only women can do, and that's bring life into the world and make it seem like, well, that's not the biggest part of being a woman.
yeah, yeah, definitely. That goes back to some of the things we were saying about feminism as well, doesn't it? And how, it's not feminist to point out the kind of biological differences in case, you're considered to be reducing women to their biology or saying that all women should be in the kitchen with a baby on their hip.
Well, maybe feminism is a euphemism for another word too, like misogyny. Because
Yeah. Well, I guess it can be.
because
I mean, it's a big thing, isn't it? It's a broad church feminism. You don't have to study anything or be a particular person in order to call yourself a feminist. So I think we've all
yeah,
got to
and
be
you ask
tight.
somebody, well, you're a feminist. Okay, what does that mean? And I don't know that they have a cogent answer.
For me, it just means putting women first and supporting women in
But you can't use the word.
Well, exactly. Well, that's why I am using the word. I mean, you talk about getting cancelled. I have been, and it is actually very liberating because you think, well, it can't get any worse now. You've done it, and I'm not making light of it because it has been actually quite hard for me. I mean, I've lost a lot of income
Yeah.
and opportunities through it. I just feel like it's really important to speak the truth, like in this emperor's new clothes situation, to be the one of the people, and there are many other women who are standing up against this, and but it's really important to speak the truth because the way that men are censored, like it's happened, we just had the Supreme Court judgment in the UK, which has said that in the Equality Act, woman means a female person, man means a male person.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Um,
That was affirming as opposed to, I was expecting it to be
yeah,
backwards.
no, it was completely incredible. The judgment was beyond everybody's expectations
Yeah.
as to the best possible outcome for feminists like me who think that sex is in some situations. That's the problem. If you say sex matters, it doesn't matter in every situation. Doesn't mean that we all have to be in the kitchen with a baby on our hip, but there are some situations in which it is important that we acknowledge the reality of sex, like changing rooms is one example, prison cells is another example, sports is another example. Shortlists. Why did we create women only shortlists? Why do we have women only panels? Because of sexism, because of the history of women not being allowed to go to university, not being allowed to be educated at all, still happening in some parts of the world. It's not like, oh, that was in the past. Go to
Oh, no,
Afghanistan.
it's prevalent in a large part of the world. Right. Of course.
Yeah. So that's why we have women only panels, because women's voices are less heard historically and even today. And so if you have a women only panel and you say it's open to anyone who identifies as a woman, so say it's a panel of 5 people and you have one person who's 45 years old, and until 5 years ago they identified as a man and now they say they're a woman. Well, they've had 40 years of male privilege and all that affords, and they get to speak on I've seen a women only panel which was actually about female sexuality, that included one such person who was male. And I just felt so offended by that, because like, how we haven't had many conversations about female sexuality. We've only just started to have them. How can we have only just started to have those conversations and then got a panel where there's a man on it? Out of the 5 women on the panel, one was a male person. So in that situation, I just think I can't understand how any woman can look at that sort of situation and think that it's bigoted to point that out. Because to me, it's just like outrageous. It's outrageously sexist to have a man speaking about female sexuality. But I think the problem is that some people actually do believe that there is some sort of inner gendered essence, that you can be in a female body, but you can have inner gendered essence that is male, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that. For me, that's like, I mean, with all respect to Christians, I'm not a Christian. I don't believe that the bread turns into the body of Christ. I respect their right to believe that. I would never ever try to tell somebody they shouldn't believe that. But you do you. That's not what I believe. And I'm the same with this. I just don't think that people are born in the wrong body. I don't think that they should have to have surgery to correct that. I don't think children should be told that they could be a boy or a girl and they don't really know. And I just think all of that is wrong. And I don't understand why some people are subscribing to it. And I think it's deeply anti-woman.
I don't have a problem with men speaking on feminist issues, wearing a suit and tie and
Yeah.
showing up and being invited as a male, but a male who thinks he's a woman speaking on women's issues, you're right. There's just something very
Yeah.
perverse about that
Yeah.
whole
Like a
scenario.
man.
And yet, if you speak up, as you did, or J.K. Rowling did, or Martina Navratilova did, or Riley Gaines recently in women's sports, you find yourself initially vilified and ostracized. But
Yeah.
as it turns out, history will prove you all heroes,
Thank
and
you.
you will. Right.
Yeah. I
Right. We're
actually
going
really
through a
think
period of
you're right.
lunacy. We had the Dark Ages, we had the Age of Enlightenment, we had the Renaissance. Right now, we're in the age of absolute stupidity.
Yeah.
And sometime we'll look back on it and we'll just talk about boys and girls sports, and we'll talk about open borders, and we'll talk about, I could come up with any number of things. Electric car mandates in states that don't have enough electricity to run their state as it is. We'll talk about all these things which people who follow me know as stage one thinking, which I got from my economist mentor person named Tom Sowell. Maybe you know Tom of Tom Sowell. Very interesting guy.
Good.
But doing things because they sound good or feel good without ever actually asking the follow-up question, which is, if we do this, then what happens? What actually does it do? Does it actually do good? Well, we don't care if it does good or not. We just want to do it because it feels good or we're getting some benefit from advocating for it. And there
Yeah.
could be all kinds, and when I do my 2-day talk, I go through a whole list of these sorts of things, including things like, well, let's just give thalidomide to nauseous British women in the 1950s because it's going to work. Well, shouldn't we test it first? Oh, we don't really want to test it first. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Thalidomide
Yeah.
is something that people know of. That will die out in history too. People will not remember thalidomide.
Yeah. No, I know. I know.
Boy,
Know it
I
well.
went off topic there, but I think that you will remember. You will be remembered as the sane one, as the person who stood her ground, and for that I honor you.
Oh, thank you. I really do appreciate that. It means a lot to me because I mean, like I say, I have had a fair bit of flack over it. And the other thing about that is that I am okay for people to disagree with me. Like I just said, I do support freedom of thought. So it's okay to disagree with someone. But what happens to women like me who do have these opinions is different to disagreement. One of the things that really helped me after I was cancelled and kind of literally just annihilated online, well, after a few months, I noticed it happening to other women in completely different fields. And that was what kind of helped me to realize, oh, this isn't about people hating me specifically and thinking I'm a bad person. This is a phenomenon. This is a cultural phenomenon. And I just happen to have had it happen to me. But there are so many other women who've had the same treatment and had their lives destroyed, their careers destroyed, their livelihoods destroyed, just because they've said, sorry, but I don't think men can magically turn into women. And that I think in some situations, it's wrong to lie about that, like the changing room, for example, or the sports field. Just that opinion has been enough to, for their whole lives to be turned upside down, their livelihood destroyed. I mean, there are court cases in the UK. I don't know if there are in the States.
Well, sure, there are. There are.
So,
I was going to
terrible.
I was just going to wrap up and say that what you just said, something you said, that I'm okay with disagreement,
Mm,
and civilized debate is actually how we solve problems. The
yeah.
problem is that the other side is not okay with disagreement. You
No,
can't
absolutely
disagree.
not.
You have to believe what we tell you, or you're a bad person.
It's
We
like
just
totalitarian dictatorship.
we just think they're wrong. They think you're
Yeah.
evil.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
completely. I sometimes worry how it will end up. I mean, I think women like J.K. Rowling, if I was her, I would be very afraid because I think there are people out there who really, some of the things that you read on these placards and that are said about her and other prominent feminists like her are frightening.
Right.
Mm.
Right.
They would like to destroy her and
Yeah.
me and
I mean,
all of
by
the
destroy
ridiculous.
you mean kill her.
Maybe. I mean, I'm not suggesting that would ever happen. It would be,
Well,
I hope not. But
yeah. I mean, they've already obviously damaged her reputation. Clearly, financially, they're not going to be able to destroy her. Right. But
that must really annoy
yeah,
them.
but even some of the members of her cast have,
Mm,
how hurtful can that possibly be that she made these people into multi millionaires and famous throughout the life, and
yeah.
they come out. They don't have to come out and say anything. They could say nothing, but they come out verbally against her.
Yeah, but that's how this situation operates as well, is that you're not allowed to say nothing. Saying nothing is also considered to be complicit. So
Yeah,
even
this virtue
silence.
signaling is very real. I remember during the George Floyd riots here, some of my kids work in Hollywood, and everybody was posting a black square on their Instagram page. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, I do. Yeah.
And if
Yep.
you didn't post a black square, then you got yelled at for not posting a black square.
Yeah, I remember that because that happened to me. It happened to me. And I did post the black square.
You
And
did?
then first of all, I did. And then I can remember literally being my downstairs loo, like with my phone in the middle of the pandemic, kids, the chaos of being locked in your house with your children permanently. And I was like looking at it thinking, oh God, what if this is the wrong thing to do? Maybe I should have, what have I did, and it made me panic. And then I deleted it. Like, I can't remember what happened, but I think I got it in the neck for not posting it, even though I did actually post it originally. I was just terrified. I was terrified to do the wrong thing. But the thing is, that's because I do actually care. I did really care. But then I thought, what am I doing? I'm a birth organization. Why am I posting? Why do I have to post this black square? And how is it going to help? How is it
Yeah.
actually going to, and you go through all these things in your mind. And you just get so terrified. I can understand why people do get themselves into these
I know
states where they just,
we're really
I'm
going
just
down
going
the
to
rabbit
conform.
hole here. There are people that, that immediately posted their pronouns on the thing. And then when pronouns became less of a thing, like last year, they took them off, and then they got yelled at for taking them off. So they got yelled at for putting them on. They got yelled at for taking them off. I mean, clearly we have a society that has too much time on its hands to go after things that they think that they really matter, but they're not the things that matter. The things that
No.
matter are much more important. They're your family, they're your people within your line of sight, people that are in your life. We care so much more about those of us that we know and love than we do about the stranger. And that's part of human survival. And so, fortunately for our listeners and stuff like that, if you do something that pisses off a stranger, but you believe it's honest and truthful, then fuck them.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But also, just don't be afraid to just say what you think, because it's so liberating. Once you step into that place of zero fucks to give, I'm going to say what I think, then it's actually much easier,
It is much
because you don't have
easier.
all that anxiety of, oh, should I post the black square or not? You just do what you think's right, and stop caring what other people think.
And if you end up
Then
having no friends, well, that's
free.
easy too. That's easy too.
Oh, well, I mean, that's really interesting, because I mean, if you ever want to find out who your friends are, get cancelled. I tell you that. You really will find out who your friends are. It's like an amazing, when they pan for gold, it's like
Yeah.
that. Your whole life gets shaken, 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 shaken like the pan, and you're left with these couple of these tiny little bits who are your best, most wonderful friends, and the rest of them have all gone. And you're like, oh, you are the people who actually care about me. And those are people who will say, I don't necessarily agree with you, but what's happening to you is awful. They're not necessarily just people who bleat along and support you, what you're saying 100%. Some of them are people who say, well, I don't really know where I stand on this, but blimmin' heck, this is so awful. I really am so sorry this is happening to you. Or they're people who, who are like you and who, think it's mad. But they really, really, it really is a way to find out who your friends are to get cancelled. Honestly, it's a really good way to sift through.
Well,
I got rid
I
of a
hope this has
few.
been therapeutic for you to have this little session. And the word is woman.
Yes.
And you keep
It-
right on saying that. And I
Thank you,
suspect
Stuart.
that you will gain significant numbers of supporters from our talks today. And if you have, I look at my Instagram account sometimes and I don't pay much attention to it because I have somebody that does most of it for me. But sometimes I look
Mhm.
and I'll say, oh, I got 900 new followers this week. Oh, but I lost 647 followers. So, I mean, I rarely ever stop following somebody. So I guess if you have that many people not following you, either they're bots or or you've said something that's pissed them off. But
Yeah.
it's a net positive. Every week, every month, it's a net positive, and that's all that we can do is continue
Yeah.
to reach out to the people that are open to hearing and listening to our message. And you have a great
Exactly.
message, Millie. You do have a great message.
Well, thank you so much. It's been fantastic talking to you, and I really admire, obviously, your work as well. And we haven't really, haven't just talked about me, but I'm a huge fan of what you do, and it's especially in the country that you're in. It's great that you sort of not afraid to swim against the tide.
I've been very fortunate in many ways in my career to been able to navigate always being in private practice and being solo practice and never really having someone who told me I couldn't do something.
Yeah.
I had to battle with hospital privileging staffs, and I had to battle with the medical board, and I had to battle with, but I never really had partners or malpractice carrier or something say, Stuart, you can't do breech deliveries. We're not allowing you to do breech deliveries. They couldn't do that to me. Because if they would,
Mm.
I would have just conformed because I started out as a very conformed doctor. I did everything that I sort of mock now. I was the guy
Mm.
in the full hazmat suit, the woman up in stirrups, cutting an episiotomy, catching the baby, cutting the cord immediately, showing you this beautiful baby, and then walking in across the room and setting it down in the warmer. Did that for years. Had no
Mm.
idea that was stupid. And it is completely habitual and stupid. And yet it's still the way things are done in most delivery rooms, in most hospitals, in most countries in the world.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Millie.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been a great chat.
Yeah, it's like I feel like we've been sitting in the same room having a cup of coffee and just having a chat.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you giving me this much time. Go enjoy your evening, enjoy your family, and thank you so much again for the books that you're writing, and keep at it.
Well, thank you so much for being so enthusiastic about them, and I really appreciate that.